Hello, welcome to my channel. Don't go alone just to get along. I have some more phenomenal information. I'm going to title this, I don't even know how many parts I'm gonna have in this series, but I'm gonna title this video, uh, da, 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 Saving Our Earth. I have so much in my mind because this is some very vital information. This is information I feel like everyone needs to know. And obviously everyone needs to know the truth of the matter. So let's jump into some information and details and let's focus on truth. So I'm going to screen share. And the first thing that I want us to take a look at as I do screen share is, come on, don't fail me now. This is what I want to screen share. Share sound. So we're gonna throw that over there. We're gonna minimize this and let's go here. And I just want to make sure all our I's are dotted and T's are crossed while we are screen sharing. So let me just make sure that we are doing we're exactly where I want. There we go. So let's begin. PolitiFact. We have a lot of this information. I'm gonna do my best to keep this thing short. I'm looking at my timer right now, so I know where I need to kind of start wrapping it up at. PolitiFact. We're living in a day in a society where truth is suppressed. There's a panel, I'm gonna put the link in the description, that met doing an event known as Event 201, where they literally had a open table discussion of what are we gonna do with social media. And they actually came up with the ideals of how they would essentially have to pull back the reins and implement restrictions on social media in respect to what would deem to be the truth and what would deem to be false information, or some of us may be so familiar with the term fake news nowadays. Again, that's Event 201. If you don't know what Event 201 is, Event 201 was a simulation based off the events of what we're living out now, known as the pandemic. Speaking of pandemic, one thing that I am going to do is I speak and touch on some of these vital points. I'm going to read in regards to whenever I get to let me read this paragraph. Electromagnetic radiation from wireless technologies, including and especially the word or the term right after especially, I'm going to refer to it in this video and all future videos until further notice as little g, and then can cause the same symptoms as the word after as. I'm going to refer to it as AI. The reason why I'm referring to that word is AI because there's a simple term named by the name of Gematria. Gematria is over hundreds of years old. It's actually coding using letters and numbers. The alphabetical sequence, again, with the numeric sequence of A equals 1, 2 equals B, C equals 3, so forth and so on. There are many what's known as ciphers of Gematria. That is what's known as the simple cipher or the basic cipher of Gematria. And again, those who are following along, you probably already know why I named that AI. 1 is A, 9 is I. So again, we're just going to continue to move forward with this information. Electromagnetic radiation from wireless technologies, including and especially little g, can cause the same symptoms as AI. False on the PolitiFact truthometer. It's completely false according to PolitiFact. Well, that's why you have to be your own student and your best teacher all at the same time, because these ninjas will lie. I wanted to say something else, but they will lie. They will lie, and they've been lying. They've been lying for a very, very, very long time. there's another document that I wanted to show a lot of people on PolitiFact, how basically some of the things that they reference, and you can consistently see what they speak in terms of their quote unquote truth, and how you can go behind them and do your own due diligence and come up with very, tangible results. So what am I going to do? A lot of people are throwing around terms such as, hey, based off the science. Well, we're going to see exactly who is using science now. So for the moment, what I'm going to do is I'm going to stop screen sharing for just a moment. And stop screen sharing. There we go. I'm going to stop screen sharing for just a moment. And what I want to do is get into this phenomenal book that I have here. Again, forgive me if I'm just, not spending as much time as entertaining, but more time delivering information. I love to be engaged with my audience and my viewers, but I want to keep this simple and concise by the same token. So this is a phenomenal book. Let me see. Phenomenal book, Wireless Radiation and Undeniable Risk to Human Health. And that's why this series is known as Saving Our Earth. This is a very vital, very, 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 very important information. It was written in 2019, so it's very relevant by the Grassroots Environment Education Incorporated. I mean, all that's just a disclaimer and things of that nature, but you can go to www.grassrootsinfo.org if you like what you hear. Okay, so let me jump into some of the facts. Some of the facts in regards to phenomenal Nobel Peace Prize winning scientist, Dr. Robert O. Becker, surgeon and researcher who was twice nominated for the Nobel Prize, observed in 2001, stated, "I have no doubt in my mind that at the present time, the greatest polluting element in the Earth's environment is the proliferation of electromagnetic fields." Man, I'm already rolling because, again, I started with the PolitiFact of electromagnetic. I'm going to give you guys some insight to let you know exactly how this thing is harmful to our Earth on a consistent basis. And this is not new. This is not something that just started 2 years ago, 3 years ago. This is something that these award-winning scientists, as you can see, he stated this in 2001, so we know that's already 20 plus years, have been petitioning world leaders, local governments, you name it, in regards to things as what many of us would consider to be very simple as the radiation that emanate from microwaves, let alone cell phones and other gadgets and things of that nature. We're going to get into this information and talk about how it's affecting our world on a consistent basis. You have a lot of other scientists and things of that nature. In 1977, the Journal of Microwave Power published an article citing new research demonstrating that exposure could affect nervous system function at power levels far below those that could heat tissue. I'm gonna read that one more time because I felt myself kind of jumble up my words a little. In 1977, the Journal of Microwave Power published an article citing new research demonstrating that exposure could affect nervous system function at power levels far below those that could heat tissue. People attempt to cook meat. People attempt to cook red meat in microwaves. And we're talking about it only takes the radiation and the power that, again, is exuded from the microwave, just enough to heat tissue to be harmful to a human's health. So there's a lot of things that we have just been uninformed about because the information has been suppressed. If you're getting a alert saying breaking news on your local, TV and news outlets and media outlets, if it's in reference to any form of science, geography, or just health in general, it's not breaking news, my friend. It's ancient history. I'm not even gonna call it news. It's ancient history. In 1982, the Environmental Protection Agency's Office of Radiation Programs, which had been studying the non-thermal effects of wireless radiation for a decade, announced that it was developing a federal guidance to limit the public's exposure. But before the agency was able to develop and implement those guidelines, its authority to do so was rescinded and the office was defunded. So again, that's a good point in and of itself. As one more thing that I want to highlight, and then I'm gonna get back to some screen sharing. Let me see. Let me just. But obviously that speaks for itself. So obviously that speaks to some form of agenda to there again suppress the information that's conveyed to the public at large. Oh, yeah. Where is that? Where is that I want to bring out? Building on the network. Oh my God. This just talks about studies that's been done on animals, specifically rats. And how it affects them and their abilities to reproduce, how it affects their neurology in regards to, you know, their thinking, their brain activity, and just a bunch of just very, very relatable information. One thing that I love so much about this book is it's only 17 pages. It was packed together with very direct, straight to the point, easy to read resource. So, you know, this can make a person that's uninformed very, very, very well informed in a matter of minutes, just to be transparent. That's just one thing that I want to highlight in regards to the difference. There we go. While most doctors, public health experts, and scientists understand how environmental factors influence our cell biology, there have always been doubts that people could acquire a chronic illness from non-ionizing RF microwave radiation, even at low levels. These doubts have been compounded by decades of sponsored medical research that appears to show no evidence of harm from exposure. But science is unrelenting, and despite the efforts of industry to play down any possible problem, the majority of independent, non-sponsored studies continue to hone in on the role that electromagnetic fields and wireless radiation play in the etiology of disease. You heard, I'm going to say it one more time. Independent, non-sponsored studies continue to hone in on the role that electromagnetic fields and wireless radiation play in the etiology of disease. So again, if I'm mispronouncing that slightly or greatly, forgive me. I am, you know, working on a time here because I just want to get this information out and keep you guys' attention. All right. So that's that. This book is loaded. It's very, very powerful. It's very, very impactful. It has a lot of references in regards to, you saw it two-time over Nobel Peace Prize award winning Robert, but in addition to other scientists and studies and cases and things of that nature. Again, it's one thing to just throw something on the internet and say, here's the science, but it's another thing to go back decades, not just a few years, but decades upon decades, and bring out basically people's studies and their references and just everything that they put together and made it accessible for us so we can say this is true science, because you have to do that for yourself. Again, some of the things that I'm saying as I talk, I have to watch my words because censorship is an all-time high. That's again why I reference Event 201, but bear with me and we're just gonna roll right along. I have a gentleman by the name of Robert Malone who was banned. He actually came up with some of the very um, intricate science and putting together the punch, as I like to call it. And he was recently kicked off Twitter less than a week ago. So again, that's Robert Malone, Robert Malone, Malone. I'm going to do my best to put that link in the description. It's very short. I think it's about 3 minutes, just to give you the reasoning, the statements, and why he was kicked off Twitter. Because again, this is about edifying and bringing awareness of what you're up against. You can't properly combat anything if you have no earthly idea what you're up against. And what we're up against now is saving our earth. So let's get back into some screen sharing real quickly here. Give me just one moment. Now, what am I? Okay, there we go. So let's get back into some screen sharing. And let's jump here. And let's share. So what we have here, get that out the way. What we have here is what's called a spaceport genocide. So you have a term, have anyone ever heard of SpaceX? SpaceX was founded in, I believe, 2002. I know it was the early 2000s by allegedly the richest man in the world, Elon Musk. What we need to do is do our due diligence and find out exactly what they're up to, because this information is going to be vital. A spaceport is essentially equivalent to an airport. You know, it's a place where they launch they launch vehicles, for a lack of words. They launch satellites into outer space and everything else that they send up there. All right, so let's jump into this. Basically, what I want to show you in regards to the details is, let's see what I want on this page. Let's talk about a little more than what I want to get into right now. Nope, I did want to get into something on this page. I thought I did anyway. Well, this is basically talking about some of the places around the world where Elon Musk is setting up some of these spaceports, and some of these are some of our last indigenous homelands throughout the world, and they are taking over some of these places. My emphasis on the indigenous is in nature as well, in regards to countries throughout the years have said no. Some societies, be it small, have said no to the towers and things of that nature. But here we have some of our last places that were holding down the fort, basically being conquered, genocide has been perpetuated, and they have moved in to set up these spaceports to launch. So what's all this spaceport talk? Let's talk about it. So I'm gonna share this screen so we can see this, because I did a video on this not too long ago. It was just yesterday, to be transparent. So I must really want to get this information out. And the reason why I say that is because, man, I messed it up. I totally messed it up because I wasn't sharing all the screens. But hey, we're getting into it right now. So this is a survey that was conducted. By the next day, let me start to the top to give some context. On Thursday, March 25th, 2021, almost everyone I spoke with, both here in Santa Fe, obviously that's California, elsewhere in the US and Canada, said they were not feeling well and had not slept well the previous night. Since that was my experience as well, I began to ask for details and started taking notes. The stories were consistent and shocking. Again, this is science. Science is collecting data. Science is collecting tangible reports. This is science. By the next day, it was obvious to me that something extraordinary was happening. Let me make sure okay, I apologize. By the next day, it was obvious to me that something extraordinary was happening. I did some research and discovered that we are still in a time of low solar activity. So I ruled that out as a cause. However, my research suggested a reason an unprecedented number of satellites have been launched into space the previous day. SpaceX, we already know who owns SpaceX and found SpaceX, had launched 60 satellites Wednesday morning. OneWeb had launched 36 satellites Wednesday night. In addition, SpaceX has suddenly increased the speed of its satellite internet connections on Wednesday to more than 400 megabytes per second, as reported online by some of the people who are beta testing its service. So that gives you content, again, how radiation, electromagnetic radiation, is affecting our Earth. Now, what I'm gonna do is show you, I don't want to skip over anything, but I want to touch on some of these testimonials. So people who keep journals were able to be more precise than people who do not, logically, but the stories are remarkably consistent. Many people had been not feeling well for a few weeks, and some pinpointed the beginning of their illness at either March 3rd or March 10th, excuse me. Coincidentally, SpaceX 2 previous launches, 60 satellites each time, occurred on the nights of March 3rd and March 10th. Everybody, whether they were previously ill or not, became suddenly and profoundly sicker on March 24th or March 25th, and most slept little or not at all the night of March 24th, which they depended partly on where they lived. March 24th in the US was March 25th in Australia. A few people's illness began on one day previously on March 23rd. People commonly reported that not only they, but also their spouse, children, parents, neighbors, friends, co-workers, clients, and everyone else they knew were sick, exhausted, and irritable on March 24th or 25th and had trouble sleeping. They sometimes reported that their pets or farm animals were sick at the same time. Cats, dogs, chickens, goats, cows, you get the point. So this again is a thorough, concise testimonial of people. Slovenia, Indiana, Australia. I'm not going to insult you all's intelligence by reading all these different countries and states, but again, all over the world, South Africa, I mean, you name it, Nova Scotia, I'm just naming big ones that you know are shockers. South Carolina, again, we're literally covering the entire world and what's going on. Take the time, pause the video, read some of these testimonials, these reports. Again, I want you all to see this information. I'm definitely going to provide you with what I feel is a solution. It's at least a solution for the time being. But here we are. That's just some of the, documented information. I'm gonna go over this very, slowly again, just so you can have time to say, okay, let me pause it at those different points and then read over it at my leisure. Man, time goes so fast. I can't believe how fast time is going. All right. So let me get off this and jump into something else. The honeybee's plea. I love this. I love this. Let me screen share because I got to do this every time. So let me make sure I get this screen share here. I'm going to actually, nope, I'm going to keep it right there. All right, so let's share that. The honeybee's plea. So one thing I like to kind of reference in the process of sharing this information is with the honeybee's plea. I'm 42. I'm looking forward to having a conversation with, my mom and other people who are like 70 and even in between, because I do recall at one point, even myself driving, I got my driver's license in the late 90s. And I mean, bugs used to hit the windshield all the time. on a consistent basis, I dare say, and by all means, put it in the comments, tell me how you feel about it. Do you experience the type of insects splatting against your window when you're driving, or just when you're looking out your window, when insects that consistently come and hit the windows? I don't. And that actually is in by and large because of the radiation and the little g that's emanating these frequencies that is throwing off basically the navigation system of our insects. We all are electric throughout the world. Let me pause it for just a moment. I want to jump back into this book here, and I want to give a reference and how we all are electric. So I'm not making anything up. I'm not just pulling from the hip. I'm again using science to provide context to this conversation. Unless we happen to have a pacemaker, few of us appreciate the role that electricity plays in our bodies. Human beings evolved in a natural electrical environment. The earth itself is a giant dipole magnet with poles north and south. There are constant oscillations emanating from the Earth's core and a natural static magnetic field that shifts slightly with the season. These magnetic fields play an important role in nature, dictating migration patterns and controlling our own circadian rhythms, among many other things. Like all animals on Earth, our biological systems use an interplay of teeny electrical charges and chemical signals to control and direct precise response to internal and external stimuli, thus influence function and development. External influence, both chemical and electrical, can interfere with and adversely affect these biological processes. External influences include both natural and man-made electromagnetic fields, also known as EMFs. So again, just to let you guys see that what I'm sharing is science. It's not an opinion. It don't have a wicked agenda behind it. It's not coerced with financial incentives or anything of that nature. It's just science. It's just science. So let's just continue to move right along. And I want to get into this is speaking again about SpaceX and the 60 satellites that were launched. I'm dropping a reference here. The Outer Space Treaty of 1967 is self-explanatory, but just to read it, it requires that the use of outer space be conducted so as to avoid its harmful contamination and also adverse changes in the environment of Earth. I love that in and of itself, because that says a lot in respect to how long things have been going on in regards to awareness of basically what we're dealing with from a space standpoint in respect to electromagnetic radiation and things of that nature. The United Nations Guideline for Long-Term Sustainability of Outer Space Activities requires use of outer space to address risks to people, property, public health, and the environment associated with the launch and orbit operation and re-entry of space options. That's a book that was just released here recently by not the grassroots, but it's listed there. So you can go check out that book when you have the opportunity. Let me jump into the honeybee's plea. Basically, what transpired, I'm gonna jump down to the third paragraph. The description more than a century later is exactly the same. So in essence, let me jump up a little bit, because the Isle of Wight off the southern coast of England built the world's first permanent radio station, and the bees' first warning to humanity was heard. Why? They are often to be seen crawling up grass stems or up the supports of the hive, where they remain until they fall back to the earth from sheer weakness, and soon afterwards die, wrote this particular person that attended Christ College in Cambridge in 1906. So again, this stuff has been going on for a long time. I want to take a moment in and of itself and just think about, okay, so if electromagnetic radiation and frequencies from just radio stations were causing insects to respond in that manner, how far advanced have technology come in said time frame? And what type of damage is it doing to our bodies and our systems? I think I'm gonna touch a little more on this in respect to how it affects animals in my next video. This is more of an introduction and to give you guys some surface guidelines to go by. So the description more than a century later is exactly the same. On November 19, 2019, a little G antenna was placed 250 meters from Angela's house in Melbourne, Australia. She talks about how she photographed the new mast going onto the tower. She writes, and the next day I was in the driveway talking to our carpenter, and we saw bees dropping on the driveway, then dying. I managed to film one trying to collect pollen, but it was hanging upside down and could not seem to make it to the center of the flower. Then it rolled off the petals to the ground. So again, I started with just, again, touch, feel, tangible exposure, by me knowing that insects do not just swarm around and fly like they once do. They're not as prevalent. Go outside and look at your windshield. The insects do not dominate the road like they once did. Now you have the science giving you a little more insight of why that's the case. Now, the next thing I want to jump into is the letter that was written to Elon Musk. Now, again, we're going to give this a little context. So in essence, people are doing their due diligence, they're dotting their I's, they're crossing their T's. So I want to make sure I don't start reading and then have to back up again. Okay, so after, petitioning courts and motions and things of that nature, this statement simply stating that the earth is going down rapidly, and on some level, everyone knows it. But in the last 50 years, the environmental movement has become fragmented and must be woven back together if we are to have any chance of survival. We must advocate not just for birds and amphibians and whales and elephants and bats and bees and trees and human health, each separately as the world is doing today, but for all of them together because they are all one. We must work not just against climate change and radiation and pesticides and habitat destruction and plastics and air pollution and groundwater pollution and deforestation, each separately as the world is doing today, but against all of them together because the root cause is the same. The root cause is the same. The root cause is the same. It's no coincidence, y'all, that they sent us home. They sent us home around early March, maybe late February. The noise really began to take traction in 2020. But in early March, they told everybody, go home. And the next time a lot of y'all really hit the roadways, you saw these towers just saturating your skylines. This is not by coincidence. And this is what I'm here to help you see. This is what I'm here to help you see. So I spent the last couple of months, obviously this is this person speaking in the report. Let me jump up. The workers, millions of them all over the planet are attempting frantically to plug thousands of holes in the dam in a futile attempt to prevent it from bursting. Instead of recognizing that it's the dam itself that is destroying us and that it must be dismantled in order that the river once more run free. Obviously, that's like the river of life, as they just said, river of life. And I'm for time's sake, I'm not going to read all that verbatim. I want everyone to see how There was a discussion that took place. There were children along, accompanied by a few adults that wanted to hand deliver Mr. Musk this letter of plea. And I'm showing you the response, and then we're just going to kind of back into it a little more moving forward. Stop Little G International is collecting signatures from individuals and organizations on open letter to Elon Musk and SpaceX, asking for a halt to the satellite program. We write you today, says a letter, to ask you to halt the Starlink project because it is so destructive. The letter lists some of the consequences that you can see below, and I'll let you guys, again, take the time, read through this, and really dig into it. But again, you have actual website where you can see what the letter entails. You see that there was a protest planned on March 19th, and just other details that can really give you more insight. I'm about basically, don't take my word for it, just do the due diligence. This is what we call an igniter, you know, just to kind of get you thinking, answer some unanswered questions, and give you a path where you can start seeking the truth for yourself. So, you know, that's what's going on in and of itself in respect to, again, dropping the bomb in respect to, it's no coincidence. They sent us home. These people was having these symptoms at the same particular time. All these satellites were launched into the atmosphere, and now all of a sudden we're in a global catastrophe. Oh, I lost it, but you know what I'm saying. It's catastrophic. It's catastrophic. We're in a global catastrophe at the time. It is not a coincidence. It's not a coincidence. And you know the saying, follow the money. Even if it speaks about the scientists that are not being funded by outside sources. They don't have alliances to certain firms and cliques and things of that nature, which I'm not going to get on to no rants in terms of things. Now, I want to keep this very simple and concise for the moment, but follow the money, follow the money. And I have a plethora of information that's touching on this, excuse me, and it's really giving you great insight. But I wanted to use this as an introduction. I want you all to jump in the comments below and let me know if you would like to have more information about this. I want you to take the time to sign the appeal, www. Let me just, because you know, I don't want to say the little g stuff. So let me, there you go. Sign the appeal. Oh, I got a screen share again. My fault. My fault. Let me do a new share. And all right. So sign the appeal. You see it. Sign the appeal. www. You see it. I ain't gonna get into that because they're taking people videos down. Again, check out this information. Do more research on Robert Malone. Really, you owe it to yourself. Matter of fact, I'm gonna drop that link of the event 201, excuse me, to look into that. I mean, they did a simulation, and the simulation played out precisely how they. Now, how the heck are you going to simulate a catastrophic event that covers the world for 2+ years and be so accurate and concise, unless there's more to it than what meets the eye? So I'll let you guys get into that for yourself. Drop in the comment section. Let me know how much information you learned. Let me know what you would like to see, what you're looking for. Let me know just what intrigues you about this topic matter. I'm looking forward to it. With that being said, I did say I'm gonna give a solution. My solution is get away from the major cities. It's one of the reasons why I've made some of the moves that I've made in my life in terms of venturing off, is because even when I was in the States You know, I moved well outside of the major city. I moved at least an hour and a half from any major city, not an hour and a half from the major city that I was in, but an hour away from any other major city. And the reason being, it was a small population and there were not abundance of towers that just lined and filled the scenery and the skies. I feel like mountains are always good as well, because at least for the most part, you have that natural barrier. But do your research on this. Obviously, grow your own food. That's a whole nother conversation in and of itself in terms of what's been done to the food. But I started off with the PolitiFact. I mean, take that for what it's worth. You know, they make a statement, they provide you with no evidence. I give you scientists, Nobel Peace Prize winners, as well as an abundance of references that you can utilize on your own. Just for time's sake, I'm gonna cut the video, and I look forward to hearing what you all have to say and moving forward from there. In the meantime, have a wonderful day.